Welcome to an unfiltered podcast on real, raw subjects that will lead you to a greater level of intimacy, not only with yourself, but others as well. You're on the mic with Dr. Ace, the Global Mentor Coach, and I'm excited and thrilled to help you live your best life now. Living our best lives boils down to a few simple things. And one of the first things is getting real with ourselves about who we are and what we like. Today, I want to share with you my final address that I shared with my newsletter subscribers back in 2019 when we closed out the year. And I find it very fitting to revisit this in light of everything that's going on. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get into the letter. Pretty much it was just a letter that I penned to them. And it's so interesting as I look back over it. This is what I said. Greetings. This is my final address for 2019 and thus the end of a decade and millennium. It's been an interesting year, full of ups and downs, but we're still here. We've made it this far and hopefully we've learned along the way. A lot has changed over the past 20 years. I remember the buzz around Y2K and how it would be the end of electronics and we'd be back at the beginning, like the Stone Age. Boy, were they wrong. I mean, 20 years ago, cell phones weren't a big thing, and neither was social media, which is why newspapers and magazines were still a big hit. Just think, 20 years ago, the internet was a shiny new toy that people had yet to fully understand. Imagine most of the online sites you use today not even in existence, barely even a thought. Google was only a year old 20 years ago. Remember AOL? You couldn't use the internet and talk on the phone at the same time. DSL didn't exist. It was only dial-up. Beyond that, we've seen smoking bans in public spaces, the rise of Netflix and streaming services, the rise and fall of Napster, the death of Blockbuster, and so much more. On the downside, there's been a rise in terrorism, mass shootings, suicide, and so much more tragedy. And all of this, it tells me that in 20 years' time, we can create so much, good and bad. As we enter the next decade and millennium, have you given thought to how you will design it? What are your plans for the future? It's past time for letting life design itself for you instead of you designing life for yourself. Circumstances will come, but we handle them best when we have a plan for our lives. While it's true that life rarely goes according to plan, that doesn't mean we shouldn't plan. We fail to plan. We plan to fail. And at this point, failure is not an option. We are a forward-moving people. There is no going back. What's your plan to move your life forward? I encourage you to take the remaining weeks of 2019 and really think about your life and where you are headed versus where you want to go. What will it take to steer you in the right direction? Pray, meditate, journal. Do whatever is necessary to focus your attention on creating a plan to create that desired tomorrow. It's time to design your next decade. It's been my pleasure to motivate and encourage you. I look forward to continuing to do more of it. This is an exciting time, and I sincerely wish you lots of love and light. Until 2020, smooches. What I find interesting is how we get so much wrong. Life cannot be predicted. As much as we try, we can only see a small part of the whole. When we look at what is happening with humanity all around us, mankind can't be trusted with the whole pie. We're indulgent. We get what we can handle, and when we stretch ourselves beyond that, It not only consumes us, it also corrupts us. We thought we were going to walk into this new decade and millennium awesome and amazing and like true warriors ready to take over our unique worlds. And enter COVID-19. Not only COVID-19, but a powder keg of racism. All of those powder kegs that have been building up for years and years and years. Decades of it. Centuries of it. Centuries of powder kegs of racism all began to explode all over America. People are ready to cancel the year and start over in 2021. You can't do that. Everything that's happening now, we need it because we are in the new. What are you going to do with it? What's your next design in light of this new? I repeat these questions for you to consider. How will you design your future? What are your future plans? Are you going to let life design itself for you? Or are you going to design life for yourself? What are you doing to move your life forward? What will it take to steer you in the right direction? As we can see, life is going to happen. Circumstances are going to explode. We only handle them the best when we have a plan. You may feel a lot of despair right now. It's hard not to feel that way. When you look all around, there's devastation, destruction, and despair on display. It's like on tap. In spite of it all, are you going to let it stop you from moving your life forward? Are you going to let it convince you that you can't prosper and move your life forward? It's never just what you see. There are always things going on behind the scenes that we don't get to see. When those things are exposed, light bulbs go off and people have aha moments. It's in those moments of clarity where others catch up, while those who took life by the horns, choosing to not get caught up in what's going on, are ahead of the game. Why? They did their part. We all have a part to play. What's your part? How does your part fit into your plan? Yesterday, I attended the Stage for Creators conference. It was a digital conference that Kev on Stage Studios hosted. Best investment of my life. I will say that hands down. I've done a lot of conferences. I've been to conferences. And I don't want to say I canceled conferences in my life, but I just got to the point where I just stopped seeing the value and I wasn't going to spend another dime on another conference to be disappointed. I went back and forth with myself on investing in this conference, even though it was only $20. I just couldn't get past my mindset of, God, it's another conference. And I'm glad I took the plunge, spent the $20. I got my return in the first session. Kev on Stage, Mr. Kevin Fredericks, opened up and he talked about pivoting. He talked about how, everything with COVID-19 going on, how it has totally affected his life, his income, of course, and his ability to provide it, for his family. And, it's kind of funny. He's a comedian. So he was like, I got bills, We all have bills. But one of the things he kept driving home was about pivoting. And we hear it and we talk about pivoting. Mostly in business, but as a person, how do you pivot? You don't have to be a business owner to pivot. But the problem with people as it relates to pivoting is people don't like change. I'm definitely one of those people who I thrive on a schedule. Man, I'm at my best when I have a schedule. But sometimes having a schedule hinders progress. And you have to learn to be flexible. And I've been doing that. I've been going through that as a learning lesson in my life, as I have challenged myself to exercise twice a day. And I love walking. It's just something about walking. It's a great time for me to meditate. I get a lot of ideas. Creativity comes to me. And it's kind of hard to do that in the rainy season. And last week, man, it rained and rained and rained and rained. And I had to figure out how to get it in. And so just because I like to do it this way doesn't mean that's the only way. I still needed to get my goal. So I had to learn to be flexible. I had to learn to pivot and still achieve my goal of exercising twice a day, at least 3 days a week. So when Kevin Fredericks, aka Kev on Stage, talked about pivoting, it was so powerful. I find myself nearly in tears even now as I talk to you, as I reflect on that conference, because the first speaker after Mr. Fredericks was a young lady by the name of Maddie James. And the things she was saying was so powerful. Light bulbs just magnified, because my light bulbs were already on, but it was like the wattage got turned up. And there was so much confirmation that flooded. In that first hour of a 10, 11 hour conference, I got my money's worth. I got about 5 pages of notes, and I've been to conferences where I barely got 2 or 3. And I'm grateful because there's so much to digest. And I got so many ideas of how I can move forward. And immediately after Maddie James' session, I said, I'm doubling down. Mind you, I had already said I was doubling down after my last coaching session. And yes, I am a coach. But just because I'm a coach doesn't mean I don't need coaching. And in my last coaching session, I got so much clarity. And the woman said, I want you to double down on this, because this is your call. This is what you need to be doing. All the other stuff is a backup. And I couldn't agree more. And I kept saying, yeah, I'm doubling down on this. I'm going to double down on this. But I still couldn't figure out, something was still locked and I needed a key. And I have to say that Stage for Creators conference yesterday was the key. Because when I tell you idea after idea after idea after idea after idea has been flooding me on how I can move forward and truly double down on my message and my mission and my purpose and how I can pivot. I had already started to pivot. But now I got greater clarity on another way I can pivot in so many different ways. And one of the sessions was with Kirk Franklin, and he said, sometimes the challenge that creators have is in figuring out how to communicate the same message in different ways. As a gospel artist, you know, his message is the same. It's a 2,000-year-old message about Jesus. And he's like, it's the same message. The message doesn't change. Just got to get creative about communicating that message. That was so profound to me. What does this have to do with your next design? What is your design? What's your message? Who are you? What do you want to do? You know, somebody asked Yvonne Orji in a session yesterday about purpose and how do you find your purpose? She said, I didn't. Purpose found me. It found me out. And that's so true. Problem is, a lot of times we don't want to accept or receive our purpose because it doesn't look the way we thought it was going to be. It's not glamorous, but it only becomes that way when you do the work, when you figure out a creative way to express it and bring it to life. So I ask again, what does your next design look like? What does it look like in light of the new? Because we are in a new, there is no going back to the way things were. This is the quote new normal. This is the new. I'm not even calling it a new normal. This is the new. I used to say all the time, you got to make room for the new. And to do that means you got to throw away some stuff. You got to totally demolish it, get rid of it. And when I say get rid of it, get it out of your reach. Don't store it away. Literally get rid of it. Even if you got to burn it, so you don't have to, so you don't put your hands on it and go back, be tempted to go back to it. When you make room for the new, that means it's totally gone and that space is clear and empty and available for new things to be welcomed into that space. How are you making room for the new in your life? What does that look like? In all seriousness, in all honesty, and everything. You know, people say, "Ooh, I put that on everything. I put that on everything." In everything. What does it look like? What does that look like? What is your next design? What do you want your life to look like over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? There's a TED Talk that, my students have to watch, and it talks about a 200-year plan, and it doesn't make sense. It's like 200 years. I'm not even going to be alive 200 years from now, but it's not about being alive 200 years from now. It's about basically leaving a legacy for yourself. The work you start today should continue long after you're gone. So when you have a long-term plan, you're planning not just for today, but tomorrow and tomorrow's tomorrow and then tomorrow after that. And even though you have a plan, there's always room to pivot because somebody's going to have the creativity, the innovation, the idea, the unction to know how to shift. A lot of it just is a matter of renewing your mind. We are in the new, like it or not. There is no going back, regardless of how bad people want to hold on to how things used to be. It's gone. What are you doing to design your next new? What does that look like? Paint that picture. Make it bold, vivid, and bright. Clear as crystal. Clear as the blue waters of the Bahamas. Clear as crystal. Paint it. And then surround yourself with it. Now is the time to move your life forward. Take life by the horns and say, we're going in this direction. I know you thought we were going left, but we're finna turn around and we're going right. Even if that means following the Robert Frost model of the road less traveled. You know, everybody is excited and amazed at trailblazers. But the problem with being a trailblazer is you're in the lead. There's nothing to follow. So you kind of make mistakes along the way. There's no paradigm. There's no, there's no benchmark. There's no precedent. You are setting the precedent. In this new, we are all setting a precedent. We're all setting the benchmark. We're all creating a model. What does that look like for you? What does that look like for you? Who are you doing all of the things you do? Who are you doing it for? What's your why? If you've been following me for any length of time, you know I'm big on what's your why and keeping your why in front of you. What's your why? Write that why everywhere. Paint it on your heart. Paint it till it's in your mind's eye so that when you close your eyes, you see it. and it fuels you. It's your passion. It drives you. It keeps you going. It stirs you. It burns on the inside of you. And it makes you want to keep designing your future in light of every new that comes along. We're in a new. And yes, there's devastation, there's destruction, there's despair. All of that is on display. But none of it has a right to stop you. And it won't unless you let it. In spite of it all, are you going to let it stop you from moving your life forward? Are you going to let it convince you that you can't prosper and move your life forward? Because again, it's never just what you see with your natural eye. Don't let life design itself for you. Design life for yourself. Move life in the direction you want it to go. Invest in yourself. Find opportunities. Find what you need to move your life forward. Get moments of clarity for yourself. Design your next life, your next future, whatever it is. But your next design is yours, and it doesn't look like anybody else. Find your part to play in this world and create a plan, and then shape your reality and your future around it. And when new introduces itself, open your arms wide and say, I'm ready to receive you, because I got a plan. Thanks for tuning in with me, Dr. H, the Global Mentor Coach. If you have some topics you'd like to hear, or if you need a coach to help you achieve your goals, figure out what your new is going to be, your next design, whatever it is, you can send me an email to info@globalmentorcoach.com. That's info@globalmentorcoach.com. Again, thanks for listening. And remember to spread lots of love and light.